Good evening and welcome to the Laughing Monkey Music Show. Today we have a special guest, Jeff. Jeff is from the Steepwater band, who I've done before and I totally love. But we're doing a record list today of some of his top 10-ish honorable mentions. We may have to do a part two because this is not a definitive list. This is just big picture, buckshot at a barn type of feeling towards the albums to get this going. But before we start, I do want to mention, I want to thank you for hook up some stuff. And I want to tell people, check out these albums. They're out on the albums. Check them out. It is Return of the Wheel. And obviously, I love the artwork and Turn of the Wheel. Great artwork. Fantastic albums. I love them both. I could do all the other stuff. But people check them out on the website. There's merch. They're playing. Check them out and support them. You know, that's what I have to say about that before we get to other albums, because these are some of my favorite albums. So,
right on.
Jeff, you got some good albums, and I'm gonna say a lot of your albums I have, which is even awesome.
Okay.
Let's start though with the Eric and Steve, the theme from Deliverance.
Do you want the? I have the actual cover right here.
If you have the covers of the albums, even better. Look at that, huh? That is awesome.
Yeah. So, that's like I told you before. Like before I told you, before we started, like I was beating myself up about this list because I have some obvious ones on here, and I was like thinking of all the things that are missing. So it was hard to do, but it's supposed to be fun. So I'm gonna have fun.
It's fun. This is totally fun. You know, some of the favorite things I've heard is like they're like, I didn't even think of this album. Like for me, it adds on to my day because I'm like, when you send me your list, I'm like, oh, now next thing I know, I'm listening to this album. I want to say it out loud in the order here, but I was like, so deep diving back in these albums again. I'm like, this is such a good album. I haven't heard this in a couple of months. Like it gets me back into more.
Yeah.
And that's fun.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's not like I'm sitting around listening to these every day, but when you say all time, it's like
right.
These are ones.
Yeah. This is more of an impact for people that say, oh, you know, they listen, you know, the Steepwater band. They're like, oh, what kind of music has been in your wheelhouse, you know? And maybe the second one we can do Return of the Wheelhouse. We'll do of your favorites.
Right,
you know?
There we go. Well, the reason I picked this record, yeah, we could do that. The reason I picked this record is because this is like my earliest memory of music.
Oh wow!
Besides my mom playing piano in the house, and later on I had older brothers and sisters that were playing Aerosmith records and Zeppelin records in their bedroom. But I don't know if I'm going to give away my age here, but child of the 70s. Do you remember those big stereos that you could drop like 6 records? It would play a side and it would drop another. Well, sorry, the coffee machine's freaking out back there.
I can't hear it.
Deliverance was a big movie in the 70s. And the soundtrack, this is not only my first introduction to bluegrass music or country music, but just music in general. And I kind of remember, but being about 4 years old, when that record would drop, my parents said I would run like a madman through the house during dueling banjos and jump on the couch and like go nuts and go crazy. So I was obviously physically affected by bluegrass music at an early age. So when you say all time, I had to bring this up because it just affected me early. And then I had a lot of family that lived in the South, and we would take trips to Tennessee. And of course, I'm not a bluegrass musician, but I dabble in it a little bit. But then later on, you discover Ralph Stanley and Bill Monroe. But really, dueling banjos and this whole record was my first introduction to really music affecting me. So
that's a solid first album too. I mean, because Eric Weisberg plays a lot of instruments. And like 10 instruments or something. Like, it's a fantastic musician. That album, though, the regardless of what instrument is being played on, whether it's banjo or guitar, is ridiculously awesome. It holds up today. I mean, it is solid picking and playing.
Yeah, I just remember being really affected by it, so I thought I should mention it. And I haven't listened to it in a long time, so maybe now I probably will again.
I actually was listening to it today. Actually, that's one of the ringtones on my phone. So for somebody, feeling banjos. Yeah, I'm like, no.
Yeah, there's not enough. There's no other country records I think on my list, which I'm kind of embarrassed about because I like country music. But you know, maybe we do, like you said, if we do a list of 500, I'll get them all on there.
We'll keep doing it. Show. That's all right. as long as people watch it, I enjoy myself. It doesn't, it's good. That's what's good. See, I would say for me, and I'd say I won't compare record to record, but when I was younger, my first one, and I'm also a child of the '70s. I'm 52, so I had it was like little kid record player like Playmobiles, and had like a little film strip that would stick in it. And as the little 45 would play, like there's only like six pictures. They would slowly go through it, and it would like narrate. It's like a little short 5 minute thing. It was about the Count of Monte Cristo, the guy that locked up, whatever, Musketeer guy. But the point is, on the flip side was Johnny Cash singing "Dark as a Dungeon," and I
Oh,
was like
nice.
4 or 5, and that was the song that hit me. It was "Dark as a
Right.
Dungeon." It was my first song. So
Very cool.
I hear you on that one. That's
Yeah,
the
you
'70s.
remember that. Yeah.
Everyone's like, "Who?" They're like, "What?" I'm like, "I listened to Johnny Cash when I was in the single digits, my friend. I didn't even know who he was.
Yeah.
I just knew "Dark as a Dungeon" was a cool and heavy song. And I didn't even know what heavy meant at the point. So
Yeah. It
it's cool. And you
affected
have
you at an early age.
Yeah, and early it affects you. It really that was my. And then obviously just like you, Elvis, Beatles, you know, they start to add on to the imprint. Zeppelin, all those make the big picture. They're all like paintbrushes for who you are.
Yeah, I mean, when I was like 9, 10, 11, before I played guitar, I was just so musically lost in a good way. You know what I mean? Like I had
Yeah,
hip hop records, I had country records. My brothers were listening to Led Zeppelin. I was listening to everything, and I don't regret any of it because it's all music. It's all related somehow.
to me, I listened to such music and whatever, and then like in the '40s, when I was in my '40s, in the '40s, and when I was in my '40s, started learning guitar. It's like like YouTube and stuff
Yeah,
was a lot more visual for me, for fun. And going back and relearning certain songs that I may have lost the luster for, or I got bored because you hear them so much, and you're like, "Oh, this
yeah,
riff is awesome. This riff is great because of this." I don't know. Like "Dueling Banjos" is a fun song to play. It's a good song to practice on, but it's a
sure.
fun song to play. Like it's
And
more
to
fun to
listen to.
play it than it is to listen to. Like it is
Oh,
such a good song. I actually think to play it is so much fun. But as you play, obviously you're worlds apart a guitar player. But to me, always exploring these, going back and hearing how these songs are put together, and then after playing them and learning that is it's like two different worlds almost.
well, yeah,
You
you
know,
hear it, you hear it innocently, and then you hear it in an analytical way, which I
totally.
enjoy listening both ways. But then sometimes you got to lose that analytical way to enjoy it, or you're enjoying it in a
Right.
different way. Like, yeah, I
I was
totally
thinking,
know what you mean. Yeah, like now if I listen to that, I'm probably going to think, wow, I wonder what year Martin playing.
well, yeah, you think about it, break it
But
up.
I'm not
Well,
thinking that when I'm 4 years old. I'm not thinking.
no, but for this, like I would say, like for me, like a perfect point would be like the Eagles. Playing the Eagles on guitar, learn that made them a little more exciting for me because it got kind of boring hearing them all the time. You know,
Just
as
appreciating the
background.
structure of the
The structure of
song.
the song,
Yeah,
you watch it back. I was like, oh, I kind of get it now on a different level. Now, a band that always surprised me that I love is Zeppelin. Like when you learn the riff, I'm like, that's not what I thought the riff would be. How it's
yeah,
structured, and you're like, God, that's
right.
smart. Like I love finding smart structures for a song that you didn't expect. Like Zeppelin's good because the riff sounds good outside, but when you start taking apart the song inside, you're like, oh wow, you know what I mean?
A
And
lot of
that
subtleties. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
that is it. So actually,
Even in
Zeppelin,
heavier music.
oh totally. Muddy Waters is a huge is your what you picked out, which is a great tie-in right there to Zeppelin. You're King Bee, right?
Yeah, I have that one here too. We need to cover.
Yeah, all the covers will be up too, but bring them up. The vinyl's even better.
Oh wait, I grabbed the wrong one. I grabbed Hard Again. But yeah, King Bees.
Okay.
See, the thing is, like, I mean, obviously, there's that classic Muddy, recorded in the '40s, '50s,
Mm-hmm.
or '50s, and that era, and '60s. But that band that he used on those 4 records with Johnny Winter, Bob Margolin, Willie Big Eye Smith, Calvin Jones. I think it's Hard Again, King Bee, I'm Ready, and then there's a live one. So really, it could have been any of those 4. But I just love that era of Muddy Waters. And when Steepwater started, I mean, obviously we're not a straight blues band, but we were really trying to. We spent some time trying to play some blues. Joe was playing, shuffles. We were really into it. We were really affected by those 4 records.
Really?
That band in particular, yeah, yeah.
See, Johnny Winter is my favorite. I've had on Edgar Winter, and I had to tell
Yeah,
him like because we're doing. Edgar Winter this has an album out. We talked about his brother John, whatever the album is. He's promoting all songs and whatever. And I said, well, my album, Johnny Winter, around that same time period was his Third Degree album, which he
yeah.
actually does. Black Crowes tie in there. Shake Your Moneymaker, Catches the Steel Dobro, or if it's a steel guitar. It's the dirtiest sounding album ever. To me,
Yeah,
it's
yeah, great one.
that is the best. That's my single favorite blues album ever. You know,
Yeah.
I
So I mean,
it,
it was I just had to put some Muddy in there, but any of those four records really. I don't know why I grabbed Heart Again. I meant to grab King Bee out of my collection,
the
but
guitar work
same
is
band.
it is, and the guitar work is fantastic in there. You know, there's like the third or fourth song. It's like
Everything.
yeah, like Frisco. There's a couple, two or three songs. Like I think it's the third and fourth song. When I was listening to it, are like my favorites on that album. I really just jump out on King Bee.
Oh, James Cotton is on these records too. Yeah.
I'll see.
Willie Big Eye Smith. I remember we were so happy we were playing this blues club called the Harlem Avenue Lounge. Early Steepwater days, and Big Eye Smith was at the bar celebrating
Really,
his birthday with his wife, and we got to tell him how much those records meant to us. And Joe, our drummer, is a huge Willie Big Eye Smith fan. You
I'm
know,
sure you appreciate it too because most blues guys don't get enough props, especially back then.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
it wasn't
But
the
the
same.
feel, just that band, the feel on those records, amazing. Yeah, yeah.
Great recording sound too. The quality is really good on those. You know, if you think about it, you know,
Oh man, and Johnny Winter produced them. I think
right?
produced all four
Yeah.
of those. Yeah,
Well, the thing is, they didn't have a
Muddy's
big budget.
voice.
You know, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
it's
It just
very,
sounds like they're playing in a room.
but good. It's clean. It's all.
Good
That's
room
really what you
mics and
want.
just playing. Yeah,
You know,
yeah. Just
that's a good
going
rock
for it.
record. I mean, and
Yeah,
that's all you need. So you picked out. Well, how about it? Doors? Weird Scenes from the Gold Mine, which is a great one.
yeah. And
Uh,
I got. Sorry, I'm reaching for these covers here.
no, no, no. I've been known to do it myself. I always watch these. I see me do the same thing. A big
Now,
stack.
the reason I picked this one, it's a double album because it's not really an album in the sense because it's they released it after Morrison died, so
Yeah.
it's a compilation double album. The reason I picked this one is because this is my first introduction to the Doors and very early introduction to really sitting down and listening to a record because I either an uncle or a cousin or somebody gave me a bunch of records and I picked this one out.
Oh, really?
And it was I just thought it sounded, you know, when you're 13 or 12 and you discover the Doors, it sounds like it's from another planet.
Totally.
And I and I love the song selection on here, you know, like Shaman's Blues and Spanish Caravan, which are all from other records.
No, no, but like I love Wasp and the Big Beat and Spanish Caravan are the ones that stand out in that
Yeah.
album for me. You know.
So I mean, it's a compilation, but this one really hit me. It's also the first time I really got hit by slide guitar, and I think it was which one's on here that has slide guitar? Wait, which one? Let me see. Because Wild Child's not on here. Well, I might be mixing up my.
Well, I don't know.
I remember
Robbie's
Moonlight
always got
Drive.
he's on there. You know.
I remember Moonlight Drive and Wild Child being my first introduction to really appreciating slide guitar, but I don't see those on here. But Robbie Krieger was one of my first guitar heroes too. And you notice I don't ask for too many autographs.
Nice. Is that Robbie's?
Well, I opened for him a solo acoustic about 9 or 10 years ago, and I met my wife, who's now my wife, that night too. So I got to meet Robbie Krieger and meet my future wife this night.
Wow.
And have him sign this record. And yeah, so this record has a lot of meaning to me.
That should be like framed up next to your wedding invites and stuff next year, like your wedding album.
It should
stuff,
be,
right?
yeah, it should be. And I don't ever ask for autographs, but I was like, man, it's Robbie Krieger, you know.
Yeah.
And
it's
we
fun.
talked about Robert Johnson, and he liked my set, and I was like, well, this is a pretty good night, huh? But yeah, Shaman's Blues, Love Street, End of the Night. I mean, I know they're all from other records, but this is the one that hit me.
So you brought the album down with you for the show, hoping you could get signed.
I did, because I'm like, you know, I'm not an autograph hound. I might have asked for, I think, Dan Hampton from the Chicago Bears when I was a kid. I think I bugged Ian McClagan when we opened for him to sign a Faces record, and then this one. That's the extent of it. I'll stop there. Yeah,
I only have no. I'm the same way. I have a few. I have one, maybe two or three. That's it. You know, I've had a couple things, you know, now sent to me very graciously with autographs on there. I especially got on a book or something, which is really cool.
Yeah.
But like for me to go out when I was younger, especially before I was doing music, was Steve Vai. I actually just did a post on Facebook when I met Steve Vai.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
he was fantastic, and he really kind of led the charge in how somebody famous and how somebody who's not a celebrity should behave together. To me, that and being 19 or whatever I
Right.
was, 18, and seeing that, I'm like, well, there's the bar. You can't be a jerk to somebody because shortly after I met Clapton, and he was not the same. But it was also around the time his kid died, so I don't know if it was before or after. So I kind of understand his
Oh
drug
yeah,
phase.
yeah,
I bumped into him at a
yeah.
mall. Actually, he had a big bodyguard and a super model looking blonde, and he's really small. He had a frilly Bon Jovi jacket on, and he was in a Foot Locker. Totally stood out. I went and bought a tape. I went and got the tape. It was Pretending or something around that time. It was like the last of my money. I went in the record store was like right near there. I saw him in the store. I told my girlfriend at the time, like, watch him. And I went in, I got the tape, and I came in and I walked up to him and he shook my hand. He was just like really limp. He's a small dude. I said, oh, I said hi, and then I said, could you sign us? He's like, no. I was like,
Wasn't
oh,
having it, huh?
he wasn't having it, and I already had
Oh
the tape too
well.
on top of it. Didn't change my opinion of the music, but I was like, oh, I bought this tape for nothing. That was my food money. It was more about that.
Don't meet your heroes sometimes, right?
Well, yeah, he had a lot going
Yeah,
on,
well, you
so I mean,
never know what
obviously,
somebody's thinking.
right. But Steve Vai was
Yeah, you
cool, and
never know
he
what
signed something
somebody's
for me.
thinking, what's going on.
Didn't take it
Yeah,
personal. Did not take it personal. But
depends on the
Steve Vai,
situation.
Steve Vai was my thing. Was like you, your Krieger. Steve Vai signing that. I have that one still. It's not like a special import,
Well, I try.
which I don't do. I
I
don't do
try to
imports
be
either.
professional. I try to
Right.
be professional, not turn into a fanboy. But it's the goddamn Doors. Come on, it's a
I think
legend. I mean,
there is a limit. There is a limit. So actually, you had me. So you picked out Bob Dylan, who's also a ton of very prolific still. Rolling Thunder Live.
yeah, I'm cheating. I picked because there's like four records in here.
That's what I was trying to find to listen to it because I wasn't sure which one it was. Okay.
Oh, I'm
How's
sorry.
that?
Yeah, I mean, I love every era of Dylan. But that's the thing about Dylan. It's like there's so much different. Even his voice has changed over the years. But as far as musical content and the strength of his voice, I hate when people say Bob Dylan can't sing because I totally disagree. I think his voice is what brings the songs forward. And when other better singers quote unquote sing Dylan songs, it's nice. I get it.
Right.
But the
Well, there's the
gruffness of
original.
Dylan in the mid '70s era. What's that?
We'll add something different to it.
What?
It's more polished. He does sound different now. He actually sounds more professional, more polished now than I think he did. You
Well, I
know.
mean, whatever mid set like Blood on the Tracks, Desire, and that whole era right around this time, and then the band, with T-Bone Burnett, Mick Ronson,
Yeah.
Scarlett Rivera, all these fantastic musicians on it. The whole, with the violin and just the whole sound. I had this on CD in my car, and I get like this. I must have listened to this record every day I just get in the car and push play. I wasn't listening to anything else. That's how hooked I was. I just thought it was so cool. Again, and just the fact that there's weird little technical things like the guitars have phasers on them, like almost on every song. Like they must have got sent some free phasers for the tour or something, and they're all using just stuff like that. But
I
as
think
far
everybody
as the
noticed
song, I
that.
mean, oh, you'll know every song that's electric is Mick Ronson or somebody's rolling a Maestro phaser through the amp. But and then the acoustic stuff. But one more cup of coffee, ISIS, all just every version on here, Romance and Durango. It's just my favorite era of Dylan. I felt it's just really strong. And I have bootlegs of other shows too, but this recording quality and just it feels like you're in the theater watching it the way it sounds to me or
I'm gonna have to go
listening
back and
to it.
listen to that. Yeah,
I
I can
love the
appreciate him.
recording.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because that's
So
not what
yeah,
I was seeing.
this one's a big one because I listened to it. I can't. I mean, hundreds of times. I love it. So Hurricane had to be on there.
No, it's good. He's good. I want to say to people that hopefully we have people that are a little younger that aren't obviously moved from '70s, but that weren't. There's a reason why things, us older guys and this music, that's some boring older guy stuff. No, you really don't go back and push back the fact that something might be a cliche Zeppelin song or a cliche Bob Dylan. There's a reason why these songs are really good and why they're still talked about. Push back all the imagery or whatever is cool or not cool or hip because the person There's a reason why, and this is like, fans of you, or whatever, your favorite artists, listen to it. Listen to it just as a song, you know, and then you'll understand the appreciation of not the hype, you know, just the song.
Yeah, yeah. But at the same time, someone like Dylan created this whole persona, and
Well,
it
yeah,
just makes it that more intriguing. And the chances, same with Neil Young, the chances these guys took with their careers. I mean, years before that, when Dylan decided to go electric, I know it's been talked about to death on these shows, but that was pretty ballsy
that was crazy.
because he was like if you research the history of he was the folk scene's
Hero.
god. I mean, he
Yeah.
was the cap. Yeah, he was their hero, and for him to go to electric, there was people that were like really appalled by that. Like,
It's
this
like
is
burning some of
what
his
is he
records and stuff. They
doing?
were
See,
freaking out.
and
Yeah.
he didn't give a shit. And he's like, I don't care if I lose if I lose all my folk fame. I'm gonna do. Yeah, he did what was in his gut, and just didn't care. Musicians like that follow their gut at the risk of losing their so-called fame and status. They're really following their art. Him and Neil Young, people like that. So got to respect that too. I mean,
No, you do. And there are others that have tried the same thing and they did it for the wrong reason. And it crashed and
yeah,
burned. And they
well,
ran
yeah,
back. In the 80s was famous
yeah,
for artists also
yeah.
turning on their sound to add a certain sound to their music that wasn't a sound of theirs to
Like
begin with.
I don't know why I'm gonna go metal. I'm totally switching gears. Like when Celtic Frost went glam.
That was a perfect example.
If you
Actually, that
remember
was
that, there's an
I do
example
remember that.
for it.
I actually remember being like, what is going on
I
here?
brought that one out of left field.
Well, not for me
What's
because
that?
I was actually I just read an article the other day about Celtic Frost, and I was thinking I was skimming through it, wanting to see him talk about that. Like, because I remember me and my
Yeah,
buddy were like, "What is going on here?" Like, you could be an artist, but I
yeah,
was not expecting this, especially at that time
yeah. Like,
period. Now the world's different. Not then, you know.
yeah, pioneers of black metal, and then all of a sudden they're trying to do the hair thing. I don't know why I brought that up. It popped into my head.
You
That
know,
would be an example of, yeah. That's a little different.
that would be like nowadays. Like, I don't know, it'd be like Slipknot all of a sudden trying to be Poison or something. Like, you just that's what it would be like nowadays. It's like you'd be like,
That's
what?
really what it was like. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it was bananas, and it doesn't always work.
Well, and
Obviously,
then
some of
Dylan
the
did the whole. Dylan did the whole. When he got into Jesus,
yeah,
I really feel that that's the way he was feeling at the time and didn't care
no,
and
he's
just
never
did
cared.
it. And the band that he has on those records are killer too. So no matter what Dylan is preaching or singing about, he always surrounds himself with killer bands. I could go on and on about Dylan records,
Well, the
but
thing is,
that's the one I picked.
but you said it right there. He believes it. If you believe what you are as an artist, that's half the
Yeah.
battle. I mean, you have to have some talent too. Don't get me wrong, and have a good song.
Well, yeah, well, sure, yeah.
But you still, but Bob Dylan, like early Bob Dylan voice, was not going to fit on certain pop songs. It wouldn't have. Just like Neil Young's voice does not fit on it. Neil Young has to sing Neil Young. Neil Young is not going to go up and jam, and do another song of somebody else's and be like, you're like, oh yeah, unless he makes it a Neil Young song, he can't sing it like somebody else's song. You
Yeah,
know,
but I love when Neil Young does do a cover, like you hear him do "All Along the Watchtower" or something.
but
Yeah,
he
it turns
does
into a
a
Neil
Neil
Young
Neil
song.
Young song.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
put
yeah, exactly.
he doesn't he can't
Yeah,
do, and it's not a bad thing. It's just like he has such a distinctive voice. So you can have a voice that's not technically good that would never make it on The Voice, but it could be a not great voice that could be a great voice. Like, I love his voice,
well,
but
yeah,
technically
shows
it's not
like
a
The
great voice.
Voice. Yeah.
You know,
I mean, those TV shows. There's obviously some mega talented people on those shows, but yeah, they're anything out of the ordinary. Like, could you imagine Neil Young going on that show and all the judges going, "That was great"? Probably.
dude, he wouldn't even make it in there unless they made it in there because of his appearance. You know, who's this guy with the sideburns
Yeah,
and you know and the
yeah. Who
harmonica and
knows? Who
we'll have
knows?
him on. Sure, it'd be kind of cool. But while we're talking about cool bands, so back to another 70s, Led Zeppelin. You
Well,
pick
yeah.
Graffiti because that's a good one to pick because it's a double and it has so much on it. I mean,
I had to pick a Zeppelin record. It's that, of course, everybody's seen this.
it's beautiful.
You ever walk past this building in New York?
No,
There's actual buildings in New York somewhere. I think I walked because wasn't Physical Graffiti the little store that was in the corner? think there
Yeah,
was a store called Physical Graffiti. That's where they got the name. But yeah, I mean, obviously, like Zeppelin 4 is a masterpiece.
it is.
As a guitar player, I do a lot of listening when I do listen to Zeppelin, and not like I did before, but Presence is one of my favorites. But as far this one hit me at an early age, I'm picking these ones when I was 13 or 14. And when you listen to this, it's like I remember hearing Cashmere
Mm-hmm.
as a child, maybe my brother, and it sounded like it was from another planet. I'm like, what is that? And then you get on this record when you're 14-year-old kid learning guitar, you're getting exposed to blues, country music, rock and roll, Celtic music, because it's
Yeah,
four guys that were absorbing influences. You can hear Crosby, Stills and Nash, Janis Joplin on this record. You can hear Muddy Waters on this record, but it was their interpretation of it and their musicianship. I just picked this one because of the diversity. I was being exposed to so many things through one band.
right. It's hard. It really is hard. You ask you like would take like I still like I think Presence is a great album. It's underrated. Or even Into the Outdoor. I like all the albums they've done for other
Yeah,
reasons. You know what I mean? I can't say like yeah, four is great because it's great for the songs, but I like the
the
other songs
first
just
one. I mean,
I like them all just the same. You know what I mean? As much as the other ones. I mean, some are more fun because you know the songs that are hits or whatever. You know more for the jams. But the Presence and Into That Door and stuff like that are just those are some great underrated songs that
oh
that are
yeah,
just good.
everything. But this one, I mean, again, early before I even played slide guitar, hearing "In My Time of Dying,"
This one has
that's
riffs that you're like, what? Even before
yeah,
I started playing guitar, I'm like, what? I did not expect that riff to be like these parts.
yeah.
You know,
In the light, Cashmere, and then you got the acoustic stuff. And it's cool that there's leftovers from Zeppelin 4 on here. Like I think Night Flight and Down by the Seaside are from Zeppelin 4 sessions.
yeah, I think so too.
So
He's
I mean, great. Two of my favorite Zeppelin songs, Down by the Seaside and Night Flight. There's a lot of little gems. The Rover, Sick Again. I mean, this is a good one.
it is a good.
I
Actually,
mean, if you
it's a,
don't know that already, but yeah.
well, no, it's good. This is I want people haven't listened to it, check it out. That was your gateway drug into Zeppelin right there. I think it starts off with Custard, right? Custard Pie, right? Is it the first song in there? Um, it's a great
Yeah.
album. And actually,
And
this is funny.
I always,
Yeah,
oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say the Sick Again thing is actually funny because it ties in to the next album we're gonna do. But I want to hold on for thought for people that can think about it. What were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say you can hear the influence. In fact, Custard Pie is just I've never understood this. I never got to the bottom of this. I know Zeppelin gets in a lot of hot water over their influences, but
Yes,
what's the song by Mickey's Monkey? By I can't think of the band, 70s band. I can't think of it. Having a brain fart.
I don't know. It got to the point where so much
Mother's
Zeppelin stuff.
Finest. Mother's
Yeah, okay,
Finest.
yeah.
They have a song called Mickey's Monkey, and the music is the same as Custard Pie. Same key, same chord changes, same riff. I don't know what came first, and I don't know what the deal is there. I mean,
I
it
gotta
doesn't
check.
sound a little bit like it. It's the
It
same.
sounds just
Da,
like
da,
it.
da, 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 da.
Yeah, it's hard. They
So,
coincidentally have a lot of that songs that sound like a lot of the people's stuff. It kind
I
of
mean, I
narrows
played
it
it on
down a lot.
guitar. It's in the same key, same chord.
Really?
So, is that an ode to Zeppelin, or was Zeppelin an ode to Mother's Finest? Because it's around the same era, and neither of them give each other credit on it. But I don't know. But
I have to look at the
Custard
dates,
Pie,
the
great one.
publishing. You know, it is a good one.
Yeah.
It's funny we haven't heard of that one. Yeah, I had to start shying away. I was exhausted from all the legal battles there, just going after them. I'm like, all right, you know,
But
it's
that's what I like about Zeppelin is that they were influenced by obviously
a
Elvis,
lot.
Richie Valens. So again, that's another story. My Head and that Muddy Waters and Blues. But they were the stuff going around them. Like I can hear Stephen Stills in Zeppelin, and like I said, Janis
Oh yeah.
Joplin. They were absorbing everything and turning it into the Zeppelin, they're zeppetizing it. You know what I mean? To
Well,
get
even they
their
did
own
the
thing out of it.
when they ended and they did and then Robert did the Honey Drippers. It really ties
Yeah,
into Zeppelin. I mean, it's actually Jimmy Page is actually in that band anyhow, that album anyhow. So it was kind of very Zeppelin to begin with.
yeah. And Page will always be he was my first guitar influence and always be my favorite. Because he's a jack of all trades guitar player. He dabbles in a little bit of everything and molds it into great songwriting.
What also what's really great about him is, and he plays and he can be sloppy, and
Yeah,
I think that's a great lesson. to maybe not
Yeah.
have to hit perfect. I mean, he has some of the biggest albums ever. And as a guitar player, if you go back and you listen to it and you peel it back, there's some sloppy missing stuff, you know what I mean? That aren't Pro
Yeah, I
Tooled in.
mean,
And it's not bad. I'm saying that's good. And that's the realest thing because you're not going to get that nowadays. So to me, I even like that about it. That he's not, he could do it a certain way, but that's how he liked it. That's how the song felt, and it's authentic that way.
and he could play something perfect if he
Well, he could,
felt the need to. You know, it's just
but he chose that song for a reason, and that's like, well, it's good enough
yeah,
for you, Jimmy. It's good enough for me. If you felt that,
yeah,
half a hit, half a thing, it's fine. I mean, it's in key and stuff. You know what I'm saying? But if you listen to some of the riffs, you're like, oh, that's feels like it should be pulled through more or something a little different. If you were like in a studio,
yeah, yeah.
but if you're not listening to it, you're like, well, it sounds great, and that's how he sounds great because he didn't do it that way.
Right.
He wrote for the song, and those pieces that he did are part of the composition. You know,
Yeah,
and I think that's a
yeah,
lot that a lot of guitar players can take young guitars. Be like, don't beat yourself up. It doesn't have to be perfect. It has to be a good song.
yeah. The feel and the emotion comes through, and the song comes through. That's the priority.
That's my
At
mantra.
least
Serve
for
the
me.
song.
I mean,
No,
nowadays
no.
that's not a priority for some, but it is for me.
But for your type of music and the people watching our fans, that love this kind of talks and these kind of shows and your band's music, you know what I mean? That's the
Yeah,
fan base that I say we watch. That watch a show. The fan base that we're in of the same type of music. We're all fans of the same thing. You know,
sure, sure,
of the song. It was great.
sure.
You said you were doing saying "Sick Again," which is kind of great because the next group actually it's funny to tie out. I think very very easy to tie this in. It's Black Crows. The Black Crows did a thing with Jimmy Page and Sick Again, and they did the whole tour with him. You chose
Oh yeah,
Black
yeah.
Crows Southern Harmony Musical Companion, which is a good album because that was definitely their breakout album. I mean, the first one was good, and I was talking to Steve Gorman about it. But to me, talking to him about this album this was like a night and day album for them. This is a new band.
That's what I like about it, and I mean, I love again. I'm a hardcore Crows fan, so I
Mm-hmm.
know I love a lot of the rarer records, and they don't really have a record that I don't like. I like all their records, but I was kind of a late bloomer to the Crows. I remember when I
I was
joined
too.
when Steepwater um, started. Joe and Todd, our original bass player, we were always trading records and listening to music, and they're like, "Man, are you into the Crows?" I'm like, "Yeah, I know the Crows. They kind of sound like the Stones." I'm like, "No, no, no, check this record out." And they turned me on to Southern Harmony, and particularly the spontaneity. And then you read about the spontaneity and how quick Ford had just joined the band, and how quickly they did the record and the sound. That's another record I must have listened to a zillion times. Huge influence on me. Just a great record, and they were a gateway to a lot of other music too, because they wore their influences on their sleeves, still do. But sounds like the Black Crows.
It
And when you
does.
got a singer that good, Chris Robinson presenting the songs, great songs, but just a great record front to back.
I
I
agree. I mean, I
mean,
like the first one myself,
guitar
but
tones and everything about it. It's a perfect
it
record. And
at the
not perfect record.
once again it shows but that shows exactly musically two guitar players playing the same song. You got to find a sweet spot for each of you to sound good and not overstep each other, but be compliment each other, which really says a lot about your playing as a guitar player. You know what I mean? You
Oh
can't
yeah, yeah.
compete. You have to work and you have to you have to be a partner. It's like a marriage. Two guitar players is even more of a marriage than the band. That sound makes or breaks a band when you have two guitar players, you know?
Yeah, and I think probably bringing Ford in at that time took the band to another level. And
Totally.
I think read an interview with him or something, where he said that they kept changing the songs too. Like it was so like, well, now it goes like this, and changing tempos, and he was just kind of thrown in there and really improv. And of course, we got to work with Mark years later. So how awesome is that? You know? So
And also, as
I
we were
mean,
saying earlier, that's where I got into you guys actually from. Literally, I think I was watching a Black Rose thing, and then I think the
yeah,
YouTube rabbit hole. Next thing you know, I saw, Mark Ford working in the studio, with this band. I'm like, who's this? I'm listening
yeah,
and watching. I'm like, I'm pretty cool guys. I'll have to check out the music. I was like, oh wow. And then that was it. I was you
yeah,
guys I
cool,
listen to Mark Ford now. But
yeah.
I had Mark on and I had Steve Gorman on a little while ago. And he was talking about the band because at that point they were evolving so fast
Yeah.
he was saying they almost like a new band every 8 months because they're changing so much, and they wouldn't put out. They're very particular. They have a song that he loves, but they wouldn't put it out because he didn't think it was perfect. They're perfectionists. That's why
Yeah.
there's not a lot of
Okay.
bad stuff out there because they were perfectionists. They have songs that
And they
they
write a
make
lot of songs. Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine how many songs they write that don't see the you never get recorded or you know
right,
what I mean?
and I think the dynamic of all so many alphas in a band was so great in the beginning until you started getting money and drugs and egos on top of the alpha musicians. At first, it makes the great chemistry of those albums. Amorica to me is like one of the best albums ever. You know,
See, Amorca's right up there with me. I mean, it's a close tie, but something about the production on Southern is a little raw.
I can hear you on that one. Yeah, I
I
think
got to go with Southern.
right. So yeah, see, I'd switch them, but to me, they're both. I would never say no. So I put them on. Somebody put that one on and be like, cool. Like, you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah, they're both great. Yeah, yeah.
Because I went to Southern too. So to me, it's a hard call. I like the other. they have some newer stuff that I like too. So I didn't like they didn't lose me either. It's just it's almost like different versions. It's like Deep Purple or Yes. It's just different versions of the band. As a fan, I've generally enjoyed most different versions of bands. You know,
Yeah, they never. I
sometimes
mean, that's
better.
what I mean. The Crows, they're always. I mean, they switch band members and the
A
seventh
lot.
lead guitar player, but it's always good. And by the way, I don't mean to get off on a left field rant, but the current guitar player Isaiah Mitchell, man, I don't know if you're hip
Good.
to him. Amazing guitar player, and he has a band called Earthless. Or if you're hip to Earthless,
No, check it out.
man,
I
what
would
a
check it out.
oh, you got to check Earthless out. So yet
I,
again,
I
they have
will.
a great lead guitar player in their band. And anybody who's passed through the Crows is not a slouch.
No, you're not going to suck if you're in the Crows. It's definitely
What's that?
yeah. You're not going to suck if you're in the Crows. I mean, despite the dynamics, it's always there's always good musicians. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
What's weird to me was the when they did Magpie. You know,
yeah,
at that point, Mark wasn't into it because he didn't want to do another Crows without Chris. He wanted to do a different band. You know what I mean? He showed up and he thought
yeah,
they were going to write songs, and Richard had the songs written, so he kind of didn't do a lot of writing either in that band, which is
yeah, yeah,
a shame, really, because it was most of the band. You know, it was a good.
yeah.
You
Sorry,
know,
my dog was howling in the background
it's
there.
okay. No, I'm saying, but the Crows fan like, well, if they're not getting back together again, at least most of the guys are together, and Mark's writing with Rich. Let's see what they got. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I thought Magpie was a killer band. I
Yeah,
saw
I
him
did too.
a couple of times. John Hogg's a great singer, and yeah, amazing
Which is
band. So
weird.
yeah,
People,
that's the thing about the Crows camp. Even like when they break up, you get all these great solo records and other bands, and then when
well,
you get
there's
back together, you got the Crows. It just spawns more good music.
it's like a family tree. You know, maybe it's a twisted, maybe a twisted tree, but it's
Yeah,
still
maybe.
a tree. And it's like it's hard. Like I'm glad, and it seems like the brothers are actually back together. And I'm kind of happy, and I hate the fact that people say it's a cash grab, dude. Every band that plays music needs to get cash. Like, when you go back to work, if you lose your
Yeah,
job and you go back to work on Monday, is that a cash grab? No, man, you're getting paid for working. It's not. It's
yeah,
you know
and then Shake Your Moneymaker is their record. They have every right to go out and play that
right.
record if they want, and it's refreshing to see a roots rock and roll band selling tickets like that in
Yeah,
2022. I mean, that's great.
I'm super supportive of any band that's doing. You want to go back? So maybe you did get burned out. Maybe you're doing too many drugs. Maybe you're mad at your brothers. Maybe you're doing this and that. Maybe having five alphas in the band right now at this point in your life is not going to work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if the brothers want to
Well,
do
people
it,
get in the yeah.
good for them. But I mean, you know, it's hard. It's a hard call because the Crows fans get really, really worked up. I'm like, whoever's doing whatever, have fun, man. Just enjoy it. I'll take
Yeah,
whatever.
well, people get the idea in their head that they know these people personally through the music, and then they spawn their opinions. They don't know it's none of your business really behind the
No,
scenes.
and if you're a
Not
musician, and
your
the fact that
life.
no, and the fact that like a musician, like to have musicians will actually be the ones that are more critical about it. It's a part of is baffles me because I'm like, you're a musician, you know that a dynamic in a band, you know the power struggle over a stupid.
Hard to keep a band together. Yeah.
I mean, you used the stupidest fights over a song, over a couple chords, a couple lyrics, like blood battles
Yeah.
over 2 words, 2 words. Like in the real world, that's insane. So
Yeah.
to be in a band and know that kind of stuff, and then see how long Black Crowes existed before imploding to do this stuff is a miracle.
Yeah.
So to me, I'm like,
Yeah.
if they find, and the best part is, guess what? They are brothers. They can still
Yeah,
recreate the sound, and regardless of what goes on with them, it's a good sound. Let them play.
yeah,
To me,
exactly,
that's
exactly.
it's good. I seen footage online of them, like bootleg stuff on YouTube. They sound great. You know,
Yeah,
so that's cool. So,
yeah,
so
absolutely. Yeah, they're not going to go out there not sounding good.
no, I'm looking forward to the album. They did an EP, 1970, 75, 70. Did an EP, and it was just on like I don't know, Apple or Spotify.
It's
It
out
was on
again.
one.
It's out on vinyl now. Yeah,
Yeah, and
you
it's
can
out
get it
everywhere. But
there. Yeah,
they first released it just as one streaming service, I think.
yeah, you can get
However they
it
did
now.
it. Yeah,
Yeah, you can get
I
it for
think that
sure.
was a bad move at first because I'm like, you can't do that. We don't do it. There's no such thing as imports anymore. There's no special. You need to put it out there for everybody because no one's going to be jumping services for you. If you don't have it
Yeah,
in front of them, Black Rose or not, if I can't see it on iTunes or whatever my service is for
right. Yeah,
whoever
it's kind
whoever
of
the
the way it
person
is
is,
nowadays.
no one's going to jump for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
You guys are on
yeah,
every service. You can't not do that. Um,
yeah.
Going way back to another influence, Robert Johnson, complete recordings.
Yeah, and
Um,
I was kind of miffed because I went through my albums and it's all alphabetized and went to my
Same.
J's and Robert ain't in there. So I don't know if somebody stole my Robert record, but I couldn't find it. But yeah, the Robert Johnson. I mean, he only did what, one recording session or two recording sessions.
It's
So
hard. There's a
that's
couple of compilation-y things out there. There's not a lot on there if you go out on streaming services for it. But this was actually on it as it is. And it's amazing. It sounds amazing too. Once again, a lot of old blues albums sounds amazing. You
yeah,
know?
and I had to pick Robert Johnson because by listening to Zeppelin and the Crows and the Stones, and you go back and realize where that stuff came from. And obviously, there's a ton of great, Charlie Patton and all these other great blues guys of that era, but Robert Johnson's kind of the king of that era as far as being known, I guess, in blues community. And then all the mystery, the
Oh
folklore,
yeah,
deal with the devil, and then the whole thing. But the songs, come on my kitchen and Crossroad Blues and Love and
yeah.
Fame, writing
Hellbound,
those
like the
songs.
yeah.
But then how about the thing where now there's controversy over the speed of the recordings? If
No,
you
I
can
didn't
get
know.
all the, because a lot of yeah, there's a thing where they claim that the recording is at the wrong speed, and then they re-release them at a slower speed. And if you get those Robert Johnsons at a slower speed, it kind of sounds more like Son House. His voice sounds deeper. And I don't know what to make of that because I haven't sat down with a guitar and saw if the slower version puts it in weird keys. But to me, it would seem like if the recording was sped up, wouldn't have somebody said something 60 years ago and be like, hey, Robert, your record sounds funny. Was there something wrong with the tape? I don't, because this controversy started, 20 years ago, where people started saying those recordings are sped up. And that's why his voice sounds so high. I haven't analyzed that to the fullest extent, but
That's
they
gonna be a hard
still,
one to prove because when it was recorded and like with gear, so if it was recorded and it was sped up, obviously it wasn't on purpose because you didn't have the
yeah, but
technology.
what? And wouldn't have somebody said something? So you can go on YouTube and they'll play like both versions. And when they slow it down, I haven't listened to that in a long time. His voice does sound more normal, quote unquote. It sounds more like a deeper, like a Son House. It's not that high. So I don't know. It sounds good on both speeds, to be honest with you.
Maybe we could throw it out there and say maybe the tape itself, the machine itself, recorded because tape machines did have the speeds were kind of goofy
Well,
on reel to
sure, but this
reel.
is pretty drastic.
Well, I know. I'm saying I don't know. Maybe
So
that was just
yeah,
a. I would say best case scenario, the machine was off. It was accidental, and no one just realized it. And they assume that's how you sound when you record, so no one said anything. That would be
maybe.
the most blanket statement. But to me, I don't know. I don't would notice it by now. Like somebody should be like, I was in it. I saw him back down in the clubs back then, and said that's not what he sounded like. You know what I mean? Somebody would have been
That's
like,
what I'm saying. Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm. But there's no recordings of him playing in front of people or anything to compare it to. So
the only thing with being slower and thinking about it, playing back, being like, oh, it's hard to play slow. It's hard to play really good slow. It was better to play faster.
yeah,
So we just
well,
make them that much
sometimes
better.
yeah.
you know,
So I'll go on record as saying I enjoy Robert Johnson on both speeds.
you are not controversial whatsoever. Thank you for that
not,
vanilla decision. No.
not really.
Well, the point is that he's good, and to really, when people listen to it, I want people to go back and listen to these albums and say, think about the time period it was at, and go like, well, yeah, I've heard a lot of guitar players like this because you've heard your Zeppelins and your all these bands for years, Your brain's
Yeah,
built in. You got to take yourself back before any of these guys ever existed. He had no
yeah.
influence from anybody. Where is this guy coming up with this stuff? There was none of this around. Nothing was electric. Nothing. It was
Except for other
insane,
musicians that he was around. That's where they all
right?
stole from each other. But his
But there,
technique and that, yeah, crazy.
he was
Yeah,
innovative on a level that people just don't get. It's not just because he was early blues. It was because of what he did. Like Eddie Van Halen was innovative, not because he's cool Eddie Van Halen. He's innovative because he was innovative. It's the
yeah,
hype of
sure.
everything. You know,
Yeah.
and he
Plus the
was great.
lyrical content, dude. The songwriting. Not a lot of other blues guys were that deep in their lyrics or in their arrangements like Robert Johnson.
No, I agree. I agree on that too. He is good. Uh, Neil Young. Now, you gave me a different title. So which one you got for the?
Uh, yeah, I think I told you the wrong title. I have where did I do it? I
While
have
you're looking
Live
for it,
Rust here.
yeah. I
Right
actually
here.
was online and I came across. He just released his 42nd album. I'll talk about that one though. So Live Rust is great. That is a stand. That's up there with
Yeah.
Harvest and all of his other albums. The big five. That'd be his top five albums right there that people know.
Yeah, well, I like the murky recording of this record. It's got like a murky sound quality to it in a good way, and I like the way Crazy Horse sounds live. And the acoustic section, the Sugar Mountain, and Comes a Time. I mean, some of my favorite stuff: Sedan Delivery, Powderfinger, Cortez the Killer. All that with Crazy Horse. Well, this one hit me. I like again. Neil Young's another guy where I could name 30 Neil Young records that would be in my top 10, but this one has been listened to about a million times.
Well, and here's the thing
uh,
with that. I'll say,
when you
so
dance, I can really love probably my favorite song. Yeah,
well, a lot of these albums, I see like albums. This is an album show because it's great. I have an album collection. I don't know, 300, 400. I don't, but that's one of the ones in there. And there's certain things I have that I have. There's certain albums I won't buy in vinyl because they sound like horrible. There's certain albums
yeah,
that are vinyl albums. I have that album. That is a vinyl. Play on my record player.
yeah,
Original copy, worn out, sounding crackly. That is, you know, an
and you
album
know
for
what I
that.
mean by murky? It's got like it's a, I don't know for lack of it. It's got like a dark. Something about the sound quality. It's got like a dark quality to it, but real warm in the performance. I mean, and what they left on here, if I'm not mistaken, like literally, this is typical Neil Young. Sedan Delivery, they literally fall apart in the middle of that song. I just left it
That's
because they were in the moment and they're like, "Why? We're not going to go in the studio and fix that. This is."
yeah,
I mean, they literally stop for a minute and they come back in. I'm like, that's Neil Young
that's
being punk rock. So
that's
I
real.
love everything about this record.
That's a good album. And I'll say that. So when I was going through listening to this, I went online and I discovered he just put out his 42nd album, and
Yeah,
it's the 13th album he's done with Crazy Horse too. So he's still doing stuff with them. Man,
yeah. But now
that's
they got Nils
75 with
playing with
Crazy
him
Horse.
again.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
insane, and he sounds good, and vocally sounds great. It's a good
yeah.
album. I mean, I just skimmed through it because I'm like, what's he sounding like still? Has he changed? Is he whatever? No, he still sounds like every. You know what I mean? I don't know where he's getting all this stuff
Yeah.
from. 42 albums
I'm
is a
trying
lot.
to keep up with the new records. I was just getting into the barn, and now he put another one out, right?
Yep, that's exactly.
I
I
gotta
literally,
catch up. Yeah,
I thought I had two. That's what I did. I heard part of the barn and I heard part of the new one. I was going back and forth between the two.
yeah.
Get an idea where he's at in the past over COVID time period. You know what I'm saying? I was like,
Right,
wow,
right.
man, the barn. It
World
sounds,
record. That's a new one. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, but it sounds just like it's very similar. You know, at an overglance, the quality, the sound, it's same good quality.
And
You
Neil
know,
and Nils Lofgren's in the band these days again. He was always kind of in and out of the Poncho. Was
yeah,
retired, I think, but Nils is kind of in and out of the Neil Young world. But he's been in past few years recording with him. I'm a big fan of his playing too. I love the way he sounds with those guys.
I think underrated player. Really, that's not a name you hear as much in circles. You know,
Yeah, but two of
musician's
the biggest
musician.
gigs played with Springsteen and Neil Young.
Think about it though. How often do you really hear his name separately? Yeah, and all the years on all the albums, those two big icons. How often do you hear
Yeah,
him mentioned in guitar or in musician top 20 circles? Even you don't.
yeah. And I have that first Nils Lofgren solo record from like '72. It's a killer record.
I think what happened is those guys are so good. You expect top notch musicians, almost like back in the day when you have like a big band, like, like literally like the big band players, like Bing Crosby. You expect everyone in that band is a top performer, so you just assume it's there. Because
Yeah.
like same thing with Tom Petty's band, but not all musicians. You don't hear those guys name dropped as much either individually.
No, yeah, it's just
They are
that's
standalone guys on their own. You
yeah,
know,
that's the way it works sometimes. Yeah. Yeah.
so I mean, it's people like us giving them props right now, and people are like,
Taking it
yeah,
for
he is good.
granted. Yeah. Yeah. Tom
Oh,
Petty or like or the Crows or whoever we're talking about,
yeah.
they're not gonna go out there with people that aren't killer musicians. It's just
No,
not
I'm
gonna
actually
happen.
reading Tom Petty's biography. I forgot who
I
wrote it.
read that. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like two-thirds in, and just listen to the push and pull of getting through the band together. Anyhow, I'm emotionally exhausted. I had to take a break.
Yeah.
It's
But
a
how great
lot.
is the Dirty Knobs, Mike Campbell? And
Yeah, I think
I think he's always had that band, but now obviously because Tom's gone, that's his full time thing. Those two records they put out are phenomenal.
I'd love
Wow.
to get in his ear one day. He is the man.
Yeah.
I agree. He's fantastic. We're gonna roll into the last two. So actually, I'm gonna skip the last one. Go back to that one. Pink Floyd Animals, and actually, they just released that as a remix thing recently too on iTunes. I don't know if you
Well,
saw
you
that.
know what? I know everybody's seen this cover, but yeah, I
It's
thought this
iconic.
one
It's iconic.
sounded good, but I listened to the remix,
Hmm.
but I hadn't listened. It was only on my phone and headphones, and I was skeptical because animals, why don't if it's not broke, don't fix it. But I thought the remix was incredible. Have you heard it?
Yes, but I had to go back and it's been a while since I compared the two because I actually think they took the original off. So it's just the remix. So I couldn't do a side by side. Because they're
I
always
mean,
doing
it was
changes now. Online with digital, like it's Atmos. It's not really Atmos. It's Apple lossless. It's like it's always a
yeah.
change, and you're trying to catch up. But I think it sounds
It's
good.
just I think it was obvious. Like I was hearing more guitar parts, more vocal things, more B3 organ. I mean, it's definitely a remix.
Which is a
Um,
surprise because they've had pretty good production from the very beginning. You
yeah, I mean,
know,
I didn't have a problem with the first one.
right?
But again, this era of uh, Pink Floyd's another band where I could name 10 records I like. But this era, the Angry Roger Waters lyrics and the probably what it's got to be maybe my favorite guitar album, electric
Is it?
guitar album. The guitar playing on this album, just the band in general, and the whole production of it. It's animals, it's a
I
classic.
love all of Pink Floyd's albums, and I will say just like you just can't not love them all. To me, I think it's is Atomic is the one with a cow on it. That's my favorite one. It's escaping me right now because we're talking about it right now.
Oh, Adam Hart Mother.
Yes, that's the one. I think it's Atomic
Yeah,
when the
that's a
song's
weird
on it.
one.
That I love that
Yeah,
one because it's so not what you think of Pink Floyd to be. And it's so
yeah.
early. That's another book I was halfway through. I read like three books at a time. I bounce between them. Focus
Yeah.
issues. But that's another
That's
fantastic
right.
early. It's a fantastic story. The early story of Pink Floyd is a fantastically interesting, wild adventure. You know,
And I like the first record. That's a whole different
Yeah, yeah.
the Sid
Well,
Barrett era. I mean, and then the classics that you've heard a million times, Dark Side of the Moon will always be Dark Side of the Moon. I mean,
but there's a
that's
reason why they're classics. Once again, it's all about peeling
sure.
back and the show should be called "Peel Back the Hype." We're gonna
But yeah,
end.
as far as
Yeah.
oh, good, good. But as
No,
far as we're both excited about
I know, right?
animals.
That's I think of these songs, how great they are. It's a good album. You know.
Yeah, and the production, I just again, obviously, if you notice, 90% of my picks here are from the '70s. I obviously got a gravitation towards '70s production, but it's just a warm. The guitar tones, the bass tones, the keys, the drum tones. I mean, everything about it. And I got to be in the mood. This is a deep listen. You don't casually put animals on. But about once a
No.
year, I'm like, I got to listen to. It's not like I'm listening to animals every day, but once a year, I got to revisit animals.
I couldn't get into Pink Floyd until deep. I dug their stuff in high school, but I couldn't. I was into more faster, aggressive stuff because of my energy level. I had to chill
Yeah.
out a little bit. Like I appreciated them, but I could never get through a whole album because I'm like, I just can't sit still long enough. So I was very,
Yeah.
very much into more upbeat music. And as I got older, I could slow down. I could finally
Yeah.
sit through it and really, really enjoy it. Do long periods of time now. You know,
Yeah. Or maybe
And
riding in a car or something. Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely background and creative music. It's just not, go out there crazy music. Like I couldn't like listen to it. And sometimes I listen to music because I'm mowing the yard or something to get through it. Actually,
Yeah.
your band's a good band. It kind of get me upbeat and get me through the night, get me through the,
All
the mowing
right.
process because it's so upbeat. You know what I mean? I think I'd probably drive
Gotcha.
my mower off into a tree or something if I had to listen to like a droning, 3 hour solo on Pink Floyd. I'd be like, I can't. I can't relax. I gotta get through this. I can't.
Right.
Can't do that.
We have a couple slow burners, but not too much for you, right? Gotcha.
Um, Talking about blue, we're gonna end on a good one. Actually, they're all good, but Rolling Stones, Exile on Main Street, which is a cold classic, and it's really the blueprint for dirty bluesy rock. I mean, for them, you know.
Yeah, again, there's another band I could pick 10 records. And I really, as much as I love Ron Wood and Brian Jones, I like the Mick Taylor era records, Sticky Fingers and all that.
Oh,
But
those are
yeah, Mick Taylor's on this too, along with other, yeah, Exile. I mean, Torn and Frayed, Love and Cup, Rocks Off,
yeah, the whole
the
thing.
whole sonically, the sound, the whole story behind it about recording in the house, Tax Exile, and just the whole vibe of it. And I know Mick Jagger said in interviews that to him it's one of the more disjointed Exile, or one of the more disjointed Stones records, where he didn't think the arrangements were as good as some of the other records. Well, whatever, it sounds like a working band, similar to Physical Graffiti,
Right.
where there's all kinds of things going on, and it sounds like they just woke up in the morning and wrote tunes and recorded them and got the vibe and put it
Get it out there.
on vinyl, and it's Exile. It's a classic.
Right. Well, that's why people love the Crows when they came out, because people were missing that. Because what happens is a lot of these bands later on, like the Stones had other big albums, especially in the 80s and 90s. I've listened to them, but they didn't really jump out at me because it was probably too organized, too together. It wasn't the same vibe. I felt like it was like was missing something.
Yeah.
Um, but the Stones, to me, there's very few mistakes they've ever done. I, except for maybe those outfits in the video, the Harlem Shuffle. Those outfits, a little rough for me. But everything else is good. The music's fine.
Yeah, that whole Mick Taylor era, all those.
Yeah.
Well, even after that, I mean, I love Ron Wood too,
Yeah.
but love Faces, of course. Should have a Faces record on this list. I don't know.
Yeah,
but
true. Yeah,
that whole era. I mean, that whole string of records, the Sticky Fingers, even Goat's Head Soup, and all that, all those records. I love those records. Yeah, good stuff.
It's funny. These are good choices. I've done a bunch of these, and it's usually, obviously, it's always a repeat guest and somebody who I've got along really well with beyond just a regular interview. So it's a little more fun and more of a casual talk. And I don't think I've ever gone past the '70s with anybody with an album. It's always the late '60s and '70s.
With Stones, you mean?
No, with any albums that people pick from their choices.
Oh. Well, there's a lot of records that I like, current records.
There are good ones, but
Yeah.
people are like, what?
But when you say all time,
right now.
that's why.
Right.
That's why. It's like
Yeah.
all time. Well, yeah.
What about somebody who's from 14 or 35 or 75, a fan of the band? Like, I dig Jeff's riffs. What did he listen to? Like, what influenced him? And that's what this is. This is like a little platter of like
Right.
things that excited you as a songwriter. That's
Right,
kind of
right.
the goal, to be like, who's your favorite musician, and then we'll talk about why it is exciting for you.
Yeah.
Which is always like a gift as a fan or a musician and a fan. It's a gift because you're like, yeah, I get it, I see that, or I didn't know you like that person. I'm gonna go check them out.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, absolutely.
I get a lot of people that reach out afterwards, like, oh my god, I didn't even know that. I didn't think about that. It's real.
I got a stack of honorable mentions over here too.
Go for it. Yeah, do it because we've got on film. Yeah, go for it.
Well, a guitar teacher gave me this record when I first started playing. Well, no, actually not when I'd been playing guitar for about a year on my own, and I took lessons from a couple teachers for a little while. And one of my old guitar teachers gave me this record, B.B. King live in Cook County Jail. And Cook County Jail is about an hour from here in Joliet, and the record starts out where they bring the warden out to introduce BB King, and all the inmates boo the warden, and then BB King is just ripping on this record.
That's
playing at the
crazy.
jail. Yeah. So, I mean, every day I have the blues. How blue can you get? Sweet 16, Thrill Is Gone. Killer blues record.
And that's a place to play it too.
Cook,
A lot, it
Cook
feels like a
County
lot of people
Jail.
do that. That was the time. A lot of people were like, we're going to play at the jail. I don't think anyone's done the jail thing yet.
Still in Rolling Thunder. Rolling Thunder
Yeah,
played in
right. But I'm
jails.
saying recently, I can think of. Well, I know Metallica did that about. I don't know, it's been a while now. They did that for one of their albums, and
Yeah.
and a girl. I remember an all female. Being females and actually young teenage girls at the time, Phantom Blue. I think they did a jail, which was a really bad decision. To be amazed. It's like, what are you guys thinking?
Yeah.
It's not the same as having a Dylan or a BB King or or Johnny Cash.
Yeah. A little
That's not the
different
audience you want
situation.
there. You don't want the audience. It's not your audience. Know your audience.
you know, that's true.
That's true.
But I know we
What?
can't go on forever. But I got there's a couple others here that were important to me. 3. Can you do 3 at one time?
Yeah, go for it. There's no rules.
Well, this is another one that a guitar teacher gave me, Johnny Winter and Live,
Nice.
with Rick
That's a good one.
Derringer on the other
Yep.
guitar. It's a
Another great guitar player.
ripping record. I mean, the version of Jumpin' Jack Flash, Good Morning Little Schoolgirl. So that one, Stephen Stills' Manassas, probably been listened to 80 million times.
Oh, wow. That's a.
This is one of my faves. Chris
I've never seen that
Hillman.
one.
What's that?
I don't know if I've actually heard that one. I'll have to
You
go back and listen
got
to
to
that
get
one.
this record. You got to get 1972 double record. It's one of my favorite records. Absolutely.
I'll have to check that out now. See?
Oh,
I didn't.
this is it.
And
This
I
is a
love
good
Crosby,
one.
Stills. I've seen him. I've actually seen band. I've actually met David Crosby before he went to jail. I'm a big fan of
Oh,
him. I listened
really?
to Steven. Yeah, oh yeah, he was awful. He looked really bad too. He just
Yeah.
got out of jail. He was the in and out of doing a lot of cocaine and going to jail and getting arrested with a gun and whatever. And I
Yeah.
saw him. He was soaked in sweat. He didn't look like he was doing cocaine because he was still kind of like bloated looking. He was
Not a
looking
good
gaunt.
time
Like,
for
it
him.
wasn't like you were doing a lot of cocaine and you weren't eating, staying up. Like he looked like he was still surviving, and he was
Yeah.
not looking good at all. Um,
Yeah.
but and then I saw him later on. And he looked a lot better. And they actually played with Tom Petty. I saw him.
Oh,
House
wow.
Smash
Yeah.
played. They opened up for Tom Petty.
Yeah. Me and my wife saw him on their last tour that they did 5 years ago, or before they started fighting again.
They're insane. They are insane.
Legends, though. And then I don't really consider this metal, but I do love my metal. But Rainbow, man.
You can consider that like rock and roll / metal. Because I have a hard time categorizing
Yeah.
that kind of stuff too. Because I'm like, it is
Well,
Blackmore.
I
So
love Dio's voice, and Richie
yeah, the idea.
Blackmore. Richie Blackmore is one of my all-time favorite guitar players, and nobody can hit a strat like that. Deep Purple and Richie Black. I've got more stuff from the '70s, but yeah, I got a lot of Rainbow and Deep Purple on vinyl that get played still quite a bit.
That's it. I'm gonna throw the gauntlet down for a challenge. We'll do a 2023. We'll have you back in a couple months.
Okay.
You'll pick your list now. Come up with
What's
10 to
that?
15 albums. You'll come up with a theme. 10 to 15 albums that you think. You figure out what you want to do. What
All
albums?
right.
Think of a theme.
Okay.
It gives you time over the holidays. You got a couple. You're thinking about it, like how you want to present it, and that'll
All
be a
right.
very
Let's do it.
interesting thing. We'll do it. But this has been great. I'm going to encourage you to also check out, besides doing a deep dive for these albums, obviously check out your band, check out your solo stuff.
Yeah.
Anything got going on coming out?
We're just doing shows, sticking close to home. I mean, we're playing in Indianapolis this weekend, and here in Northwest Indiana. Well, we have friends that are in a Crosby, Stills, Nash tribute band called Marrakesh Express, and every really good, great band. And this will be the second annual. We're going to try and do it every year in December. The radio gets behind it and promotes it, and we play a show together, and we have a big jam set. And it's great. It's a lot of fun. We sold it out last year, and we're doing that this Saturday here in Griffith, Indiana, at the 912 Club. So I'm looking forward to that. We're in Indianapolis Friday. I have some acoustic things on the side. The gig in St. Louis. Just hanging around the Midwest. Now that winter's
Yeah.
getting here, we don't play a whole lot in January. February we're going to be on that Rock Legends cruise.
Oh, that'd be
So
cool.
and probably be doing some shows down south with that. But yeah, just playing around Chicago, Indiana,
Yeah.
Michigan for
Check the website, people, because
St. Louis.
for when it's recorded and when it goes out, it might be a little bit of time. Not maybe not a few days, might be a week. Editing
Yeah.
it. We'll see. But just
Okay.
go on the website, people. People go on the website and check it out, and support the band. But it's been thanks.
Appreciate it, Sean. Yeah.
Thanks for being on the show. It's been good.
Yeah, man. Thanks
Appreciate
for
it.
having me.